exposed how a Mafia boss's amazing rescue transformed her life after her car plummeted 30 feet. Sarah gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity, the wind swirling outside as if trying to invade her thoughts. Every day was a new battle against the unseen forces holding her back at work. In a firm filled with seasoned engineers who viewed her as an anomaly, she felt the whispers of doubt lurking in every corner. They labeled her ideas as impractical or overly ambitious, dismissed her contributions despite her impressive degrees. Each dismissal fed a gnawing anxiety, a fear that no matter how hard she pushed, she remained an invisible specter haunting offices where titles defined worth more than talent. Tonight, frustration drove her home in a haze of irritation and fatigue. Slippery roads glistened under the dim streetlights, her mind swirling with the weight of her untreated biases from colleagues, each doubt a familiar dagger nudging her self-worth lower. Had she chosen the wrong profession? Was there a different script written for someone like her? There was never a moment of true indulgence, just suffocating pressure to conform and fear to break through the barriers around her. As her tire slid on an unseen patch, panic seized her heart. The car skidded, and in an instant gravity claimed control. Her breath caught as she plummeted, 30 feet into the unknown, the sound of metal crumpling echoing against her body's instant shock. If there was ever a moment to question her decisions, this was it. She was trapped, adrenaline surged through her veins. Her heart raced as the world around her darkened, the river's unyielding gurgle a clear reminder of her fragile existence. What if this was the end? The fear echoed in her mind, amplifying the bitterness of regret. Suddenly, a shadow loomed over her, a figure cutting through the darkness. Mia, the shark Antonelli, appeared with swift grace, her eyes fierce with intent. In a flash, she pulled Sarah from the wreckage, defying an unseen fate. As Sarah gasped frantically, spared from darkness, an unexpected bond began to weave between them. Mia's tenacity ignited something deep within, a small flame against the encroaching shadows that had long been suffocating her spirit. But now both women grappled with their disjointed identities. Mia, a former Mafia boss seeking redemption, and Sarah, a professional silenced by her own doubts. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue.
As days passed and Sarah recovered, beneath Mia's gritty exterior lay a mentor sparking the resolve she thought she'd lost. Together, they unearthed corruption rippling through Sarah's company, a chorus of deceit that could silence them both. Each new discovery intensified her fear. Would bringing these truths to light merely prove her foolish iron grasp on ambition? What if her actions only widened the chasm of doubt around her? The stakes elevated, and once ordinary tasks felt like navigating a minefield of uncertainty. Tension coiled tighter around them, with each revelation digging deeper into Sarah's sense of morality and purpose. Could she confront her colleagues' prejudices and challenge a system designed to uphold the status quo? The lingering specter of doubt echoed louder than ever, testing her resolve as she stood precariously on the edge of everything she fought for. As shadows loomed over both their pasts, Sarah and Mia stood at a crossroads, one path promising recognition, empowerment, the other whispering trauma and oppression. The pressure mounted relentlessly, pulling both women toward an unavoidable confrontation that would decide their fates. In that defining silence, a vital choice was looming, weighted with moral consequences and personal truths. Would Sarah step into her rightful place, or would the fear of stepping forward suffocate her into submission forever? The air crackled with tension, hinting at a transformative journey ahead, even as the night clung tightly to the secrets that unraveled their destinies. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, the reverberations of her fear still echoing in her mind. She felt the weight of responsibility beginning to reshape her identity. Each day spent with Mia was another day stripped of her fears, another act of courage against the phantoms that had haunted her for so long. Bonded by their unlikely rescue, Sarah found herself unexpectedly drawn into a world beyond her corporate concerns,
exploring depths of resilience she never knew resided within her. Sitting at Mia's kitchen table, cluttered with blueprints and notes penned in chaotic loops, Sarah felt a surge of purpose. They were pieces of a puzzle designed to expose the rot they'd unearthed. "These numbers don't lie," she said, pointing at the spreadsheet on her laptop. Fear and trepidation flickered within her, battling to maintain control. "If I bring this to light, they'll push back hard. I've seen it happen before." Or, Mia countered with a steely gaze, they could break when they realize their lies have been found. The contrast between Mia's hardened exterior and Sarah's apprehension heightened the tension in the room. Sarah was learning to navigate these shadows, but she couldn't shake the finality of her choice. Stepping forward could cost her everything, including her newfound sense of agency. One late afternoon, resolute determination bloomed within her like a dormant flower breaking free from winter's chokehold.
She took a breath as she paced the room, heart racing as the enormity of her decision loomed. "What if it is worth it?" her inner voice whispered. Hushed whispers of encouragement mingled with the doubts seizing her stomach. Yet the images of her colleagues' dismissive smirks played on repeat. Exposure could expose the chains that bind them all. As they finalized their presentation, Mia added a personal touch, her raw experiences woven into Sarah's technical prowess. "Let them see your strength. Dismissal led you here, but it doesn't define you," she urged. Each word ignited an ember of rage against the injustices smothering their labors. "We finish this together or not at all." The day finally arrived for Sarah to present their findings to the board. The conference room, with its polished oak paneling and cold fluorescence, felt both alien and suffocating. Anxiety threatened to overwhelm her. Her palms were slick with sweat. Peering around the table, she grasped for confidence, locking eyes with the skeptics who had long belittled her. Would they recognize her value this time? When Sarah began laying out their findings, she saw the flicker of disbelief in their expressions shift to irritation and confusion. "You are implying," interrupted Jason, a senior engineer with a razor-thin mustache, "that we have been complicit in fraudulent practices?" His voice dripped with condescension, a crumbling facade barely held aloft by his arrogance. "Complicit or unaware, the two are closely wed," Sarah shot back, her voice steady and clear, bolstered by Mia's unwavering presence behind her. An electric moment sparked, igniting in her a truth she hadn't been able to articulate until now. Her voice mattered. As she laid out evidence after evidence, the momentum shifted. She could see fragile cracks beginning to splinter in the room's facade of authority. The confrontation was unraveling at an impressive pace, but as the last slide flickered to the screen, darkness seeped into the corners of Sarah's mind. Would they retaliate? Would her act of exposing their corruption become the catalyst for her own downfall? In that charged atmosphere, the invisible chains of her past began to fray, testing if she could seize this moment, this bridge between obscurity and autonomy. What remained to be seen, however, was if she could withstand the fallout that would inevitably follow. Deep in her gut, an unsettling feeling sprouted, like the chill of an impending storm. With Mia's guidance, she might have learned to fight back, yet would that be enough to weather the storm they had just unleashed? The walls around her felt both potential sanctuary and ominous prison, as she braced for what came next. As confrontation approached, Sarah realized it was not just the board she was prepared to battle, but the ever-looming specter of doubt in her own heart. Would she emerge victorious, or would fear tighten its grip just when she thought freedom was within her grasp? A tense silence enveloped the room as Sarah awaited the board's response, the air thick with an unspoken acknowledgement of the precarious ground they all stood on. Jason's gaze remained fixed on her, an incredulous mask slipping from his face. For all her preparation, the very solidity of her presentation felt like shifting sand beneath her feet. She had dared to challenge a system that had long thrived on complacency and ignorance. "Perhaps we should hear from the legal perspective," a board member suggested, breaking the inertia. The words were veiled in diplomacy, but Sarah sensed the threat beneath. The room shifted, bodies leaning back, arms crossing. They were closing in, and doubt flickered like a candle caught in a draft. Suddenly, her resolve felt small, almost insignificant against the rising tide of doubt that threatened to drown her. Mia leaned in closer, a whisper brushing against Sarah's ear. "Stay focused. They will try to overpower you." The advice struck deep, tethering her to a purpose amid the chaos. In that moment, Sarah recognized she was not merely defending her findings,
but challenging the very ethos of what had kept her silent for so long. With that understanding crystallizing in her mind, she knew she could not falter. "Legal teams will have their due," Sarah countered, her voice gaining strength as she straightened her spine. "But let's not ignore the evidence. Would you rather dismiss the facts out of fear?" She could see their reactions, some frozen in disbelief, others calculating, weighing her words like currency in a game that had suddenly shifted. "An attack on our integrity is not to be taken lightly," Jason countered sharply, attempting to regain control of the narrative. His demeanor, once towering, now seemed fragile in the face of uncertainty. For the first time, Sarah sensed her power. She was wielding truth against their carefully maintained facade. "Integrity has two sides, wouldn't you say?" she shot back, intensity lingering in her tone. "What matters is how you respond when the truth is uncomfortable." She could feel the momentum shift, an awakening spurred by her own emerging grit. The conversation devolved further into a cacophony of voices, defense versus offense, credibility against risk. Amidst this battle of wills, the implications of her actions began crystallizing into something larger than herself. Sarah wasn't merely taking a stand, she was carving a path for others shackled by the weight of fear, those who clung to their silence out of dread. Finally, the board chair raised a hand, silencing the clamor. "We'll discuss our next steps. Thank you for your presentation, Sarah." The words felt like a dismissive wave, an attempt to close the lid on Pandora's box she had pried open. As the meeting adjourned, Sarah's chest tightened. Had she forged a bridge to the truth, or merely opened herself up to retribution? People filtered out, conversations buzzing around her like angry bees.
And then a flash of movement caught her eye. Jason was speaking quietly to someone else from the board, pointing her way. An unsettling dread slipped into the pit of her stomach. She was acutely aware that she was now an open target. Would they label her a whistleblower, or worse, a traitor? Mia's voice drew her back from her spiraling thoughts. "We must prepare. They won't take this lying down," she warned, eyes steely with determination. This was just the beginning. The weight of her decisions bore down, threatening to suffocate her hopes. Sarah looked out the glass window at the bustling city beneath, wondering how she would navigate the repercussions of her choices. Yet a small flicker of defiance ignited within her. Each heart-pounding moment traversing this new terrain felt like practice for an uncharted future. She was tired of playing small, tired of blending into the background. It was time to face the whispers of fear head-on. As she and Mia exited the building into the crisp evening air, adrenaline coursed through Sarah's veins. "Let's get started on a plan. They may come for us, but I refuse to go down without a fight." Mia nodded, impressed by Sarah's transformation. "Good. We'll show them they underestimated us," she affirmed. But as they walked away, Sarah felt the storm brewing. Will the backlash be a force too strong to withstand, or will they find allies in this treacherous landscape? A daunting thought loomed, a question waiting to be answered in the shadows that still threatened to engulf her newfound courage. The following morning, Sarah stood at the kitchen counter, her coffee cup steaming between trembling hands. The afternoon meeting with the board had set off a series of ripples she hadn't anticipated. Thoughts swirled within her, clashing violently against the dawn's quiet, like waves battering rocks. She felt the weight of her decision loom heavy, unsettled and potent, like a coiled spring ready to snap. Mia entered with purpose, a stack of files in hand and resolve written across her features. "We need to strategize," she said, pulling out a chair and placing the documents on the table. The familiar sight of spreadsheets and case studies didn't relieve Sarah's anxiety. Instead, it amplified her sense of urgency. They were stepping into a perilous game, and she was no longer just a player. She was the target. Sarah's gaze trailed over to the window, where the sun was rising over the skyline. For a fleeting moment, she wished she could capture the warmth of that light and infuse it into her spirit. But the chill of reality held her fast. "What if they retaliate?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if they make me regret this?" Mia pulled out a chair beside Sarah, her expression tender yet determined. "You took a stand for the truth, and you deserve to stand firm. This is bigger than just you," she insisted. "They will try to silence you, but we can prepare. Let's harness the momentum." As they delineated their plan, an array of emotions tightened Sarah's throat. Fear of the unknown and exhilaration surged side by side. Her methodical mind began to document the evidence they had,
data reports, emails, and testimonies that could substantiate her claims. It was crucial to assign each piece of information weight and significance. Each file Mia presented drew them deeper into the intricacies of corporate misconduct, the very fabric of the system that had silenced countless employees before her. This was a personal battle against something institutionalized and pervasive. Amidst pie charts and projected figures, a revelation struck her. She recalled moments of silence within the company, the raised brows, the hushed tones. How many felt like me, she pondered aloud, realizing she was no anomaly. Mia nodded. Exactly. We can rally those voices too. You aren't alone in this. A flicker of a plan formed, not just to survive the board's impending hostility, but to weave a strong thread of narratives around her own. By reaching out to others, she could build a coalition thriving on shared truths, and the thought ignited a kind of courage in her she hadn't felt before. I can't be the only one who faced fear, Sarah muttered. It's time to turn fear into strength. Let's show them our voices can't be drowned out. Mia's eyes sparked with resolution. We should compile testimonies, gather everything, even under-the-radar accounts from employees overlooked or too afraid to speak out. This could set the groundwork for a movement. The weight of their potential was overwhelming, yet invigorating. As they discussed, Sarah felt herself shifting from a defensively reactive position to one of proactive engagement. It was a subtle change, but one that sparked hope. For the first time in days, a genuine smile crept onto her face. Perhaps we can turn their fear against them, she ventured, adrenaline fueling her ambition. However, with each passing moment, the reality of her choice loomed larger. She would need allies, not only for protection, but to affirm her voice against powerful opposition. Entering this network would mean trusting others and placing herself at risk. As they finalized their strategy, Sarah took a deep breath. I can't help but wonder what will happen when they lash out, she said, her inner conflict returning. Mia leaned in, a fierce glint in her eyes. We've got this. We'll gather our strength and confront them head-on. You finally have something they wish to conceal, and they will try to intimidate you as they always do, but they underestimate who you truly are. With this newfound clarity, Sarah silently vowed to extract every last piece of strength from her convictions, feeling the embers of defiance burning brighter within her. As they wrapped up the discussion, a familiar dread danced alongside the flicker of courage.
Would their combined voice become a clarion call, or would it fall prey to the very system they sought to challenge? The specter of confrontation loomed ahead, but the path toward empowerment had unfurled before her, brimming with potential. The next meeting would be crucial, a reckoning where truth clashed with convention. And just as that thought settled, Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from an anonymous source flashed across the screen, promising more information about internal corruption. Was this the ally she desperately needed, or another diversion? Her heart raced as she clicked open the message, the certainty of their next move hanging delicately in the balance, like a tightly wound thread waiting to unravel. The tension reverberated in Sarah's chest as she read the message, the anonymous sender teetering between potential ally and a dangerous wildcard. The screen illuminated her face, casting a cold light on her stark determination. She had been grasping at shadows, seeking reliable narratives, yet here lay a tangible lead. Mia noticed the shift in her demeanor. What does it say? She asked, leaning in closer. It's a tip about irregularities in... Sarah hesitated, her pulse quickening. What if this lead was just a trap? A department I didn't expect. It could be crucial. Mia's eyes sparkled with determination. Then we need to investigate. Whatever it is, it could provide the leverage you need. With newfound urgency, they huddled over the kitchen table, papers and files strewn about like a battlefield. Sarah felt something shift in her perception, a sense of agency taking root, sprouting amidst the chaos. She would not be intimidated. She was becoming the architect of her own fate. Let's begin by assessing the validity of this lead, Sarah suggested, her voice regaining strength. The shaking in her hands had subsided, replaced with an electric focus. I'll reach out to a few contacts discreetly. If they confirm any discrepancies, we turn it into our narrative. Mia nodded, impressed. That's the spirit. You have to leverage what you uncover before they react. As they launched into the next phase of their strategy, Sarah's mind whirred with the possibilities. Each contact she pondered reached back into the archives of her career, people she hadn't spoken to in years but had once trusted. She'd build her network, gathering tiny pieces of truth like evidence in a courtroom. But her resolve was tested by uncertainty. Would they support her?
Would her past relationships withstand the scrutiny? The unspoken question lurked beneath her ambitions, a nagging thought threatening to loosen her grip on this new momentum. Hours slipped by as they sifted through paperwork. Each piece of evidence unearthed not only marked the depth of the corporate malfeasance, but illuminated the walls that had been systematically built to silence dissent.
Sarah found herself drawing strength, not just from the facts, but from the stories behind them, face after face that echoed her own quiet torment. With the final piece of the puzzle sliding into place, a creeping recognition emerged within her. She was more than a defender of truth. She was becoming a catalyst for change. Suddenly, Mia's phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. "I have to take this," she muttered, sliding away from the table. Sarah returned to her thoughts, contemplating the choices that lay ahead. What if she pulled all the testimonies together into a cohesive document? Presented correctly, it could galvanize support. Yet, would that provoke retaliation? A visceral fear wormed its way back into her mind. The specter of confrontation was heady, thrilling, yet daunting. Each step felt like a tightrope walk across an abyss, and one miscalculated move could send her plummeting into irrelevance. Mia returned, her expression serious. "I've got news. An insider is willing to meet." The words hit Sarah like a tide of adrenaline rushing through her veins. "Do they have information?" Mia nodded, her enthusiasm tempered by caution. They claimed to have significant evidence, but it might not be safe to engage directly. Hand trembling slightly, Sarah realized the precariousness of their situation. This could be the moment of truth that tipped her journey from quiet resolve to fierce confrontation. Yet with the thrill of potential came the daunting weight of what they might uncover. "Let's take time to validate this," Sarah stated, their strategy coalescing further into a tactical approach. "We cannot afford to be reckless when everything is on the line." Just then, another message flashed across her screen, this time a photo. Images of documents layered in redacted notes filled her with dread and curiosity. The revelation could fuel their fire or extinguish it entirely. With her heart racing, Sarah leaned forward, her breath shallow. What if this changes everything? The looming confrontation with the board was now unavoidable, and the risks they faced danced tantalizingly close, poised to ignite or consume them. Sarah savored the tension, but as she delved deeper into the implications of the photo, she couldn't shake the feeling that the control she coveted was slipping through her fingers. Her next decision carried the weight of all she had unearthed. The stakes were rising, and as she clutched the phone, a single thought ignited her resolve. She would not back down now. She was ready for whatever lay ahead. But would her next move tip the scales in her favor, or initiate a reckless plunge into chaos? As Sarah stared at the photo on her screen, her mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Each piece of redacted document represented more than just evidence. They were potential lifelines or grenades, waiting for her to make the next move. Mia, sensing the turmoil, leaned over her shoulder. "What do you think it means?" "It means we're on to something," Sarah replied, her voice firm but laced with anxiety. "But it's also an enormous risk. This doesn't just change the game, it threatens everything." Mia remained silent for a beat, processing the implication. Sarah could almost see the cogs turning behind her friend's eyes. What if we meet the insider first? We need to gauge the situation, see what we're truly dealing with before we make any grand moves. The idea hung between them, enticing and frightening all at once. Sarah weighed the potential rewards against the perilous possibility of exposure. After a moment, she nodded, a resolve settling in her bones. "Let's set up the meeting. It's time to push the boundaries." Hours passed as Sarah and Mia crafted a careful plan. Each detail was deliberate. Careful questions and tactical responses were meticulously outlined. Yet, despite the preparation, Sarah couldn't quell the trepidation that knotted in her stomach. What if they were followed? What if this insider was a double agent, aimed not at enlightening them, but rather silencing them? The night before the meeting played in a loop in her mind, entwined with the thrills of anticipation and the weight of potential failure. She walked through the darkened halls of her apartment, searching for something to anchor her thoughts. She flipped through old notebooks, looking for inspiration from stories she had once covered, and memories of interviews that had left her both shaken and empowered. One page particularly caught her eye,
Notes from a feature on a whistleblower who had exposed misconduct at a major corporation. The words leapt off the page. When standing against the tide, be prepared to weather the storm. That mantra resonated as a reminder of her own strength, her ability to stand firm when chaos surrounds. Taking a deep breath, she committed herself to confronting the information head-on, whatever it may uncover. The morning brought clarity and a renewed sense of purpose. On the way to their meeting, anxiety tinged her confidence. She thought about the people whom this corporate structure had failed, the stories they needed told. Sitting across from someone who could alter the course of their endeavor felt daunting, but also exhilarating. Their rendezvous took place in a dimly lit cafe at the edge of town. Shadows and whispers masked each table, creating an intimate atmosphere charged with apprehension. As they waited, Sarah and Mia exchanged tentative glances, drawing strength from one another's presence. Then a figure approached. The insider was cloaked in a nondescript jacket, eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Sarah's heart pounded. This was it, the turning point. They moved aside to a secluded corner, and Sarah wasted no time. "We need to know what you have," she pressed, her voice steady yet earnest. The insider leaned in, glancing around as if the walls held ears. "If I share this information, there's no going back."
You need to be ready for the pushback it will invite. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. This was the crucible moment they had prepared for, and yet the stakes felt higher than she ever anticipated. We're ready to face whatever comes. It has to be brought to light. In that instant, she felt the weight of her determination. Each breath was composed of courage, wrestling with the fearful notion of repercussions. She was standing on the precipice of monumental change, teetering between exposure and annihilation, empowered yet acutely aware of the dangers. "Then it's time we go all in," the insider said, pulling out documents from inside their jacket. "This isn't just a corporate scandal. It's much bigger than you think." The revelation hung in the air, laden with warnings and possibilities. Sarah felt her chest tighten with anticipation. She was on the threshold of uncovering far more than she had ever imagined. "What do you mean?" Sarah leaned closer, urgency punctuating her tone, unaware that her question would unravel a thread leading deeper into the heart of the corporate beast, igniting a firestorm she may not be able to control. Would the shadows of the past fold in on her, or could she transform this chaos into a new narrative? The answer lay in what would unfold next, just beyond the edge of comprehension. A palpable tension enveloped the small corner of the cafe, a microcosm of the larger storm thrumming just beyond their immediate surroundings. Sarah's heart raced, but there was no turning back. The insider, who had so deliberately shrouded their identity in anonymity just moments ago, moved with purpose. Fear mingled with a quiet thrill. She was on the precipice of something transformative. As the documents slid across the table, Sarah felt an electric charge in the air. "What's in there?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, drawn by instinct to bridge the gap between anxiety and curiosity. "Evidence of collusion. The higher-ups are involved." The insider's tone was grave. "And it touches on more than just your company. It's a network of power and corruption." Each word struck Sarah like thunder. This wasn't just about revealing corporate misconduct. This was a Pandora's box, with implications that twisted like an intricate web entangling innocent people and vicious players alike. As she struggled to process, her mind began to race ahead. How to secure the proof, how to protect Mia and herself, and ultimately, how to handle the fallout. She could feel Mia's worried gaze burning into her, urging her to proceed cautiously. Their lives hinged on the decisions made in this moment, and any misstep could mean the end of their pursuit, or worse, their safety. "Are you telling us that exposing this could put us in danger?" Sarah said, feeling the weight of trembling uncertainty in her gut. "Danger is already at your doorstep," the insider replied, their eyes sharp and assessing. It's a matter of whether you're ready to meet it head on. Fear surged through her veins, catalyzing a mix of defiance and determination. She had been preparing for a fight, but nothing could have equipped her for the vast implications of what lay within these pages. She was, however, resolute. The momentary instinct to retreat shifted to an overwhelming desire to confront whatever came next. The stories waiting to be told had been silenced long enough. "I want to know everything," Sarah said, punctuating her declaration with a steadiness she didn't fully feel. "Every name, every deal. We can't just dip our toes. We need to dive deep."
With that commitment, she stood at a crossroads. Could she become the voice for those lost in the shadows of deceit? Could her budding investigative skills withstand the emotional and professional trial ahead? As the insider began to outline their connections and offer more documents laden with complex narratives, Sarah wrestled with burgeoning courage. Layers of her identity unfurled, intricately weaving the past threads of her ambition with this urgent need for justice. Every piece of information revealed heightened her sense of purpose, but also raised the stakes of risk. If word got out, they wouldn't just be fighting to expose the truth. They'd be dismantling a fortress built upon manipulation and secrecy. Mia's hand landed on Sarah's arm, breaking her concentration momentarily. "We need to think strategically," she cautioned, her voice barely masking the concern underneath. "This isn't just about the truth. It's about us." The truth was, Sarah felt like she was straddling two worlds, her peaceful past and this chaotic present. Yet she recognized that they were not simply heading into darkness. It was an opportunity to illuminate the very structures that had cast a pall over countless lives. "Let's figure it out together," Sarah said, locking eyes with Mia with newfound determination. The idea wasn't terrifying, it was liberating. As they meticulously organized the documents, assembling their plan of action, Sarah felt a gradual acceptance unfold within. Here was her chance to seize her narrative, harness the madness, and transform the fear into fuel for their fight. The air cracked with possibility, edging into their resolve as they prepared to step back into the fray. "Whatever happens next," Sarah began, "we will make sure it counts." But as they gathered their things, an ominous figure loomed just at the entrance of the cafe, a stark reminder that they weren't just changing their fates, they were challenging a monstrous power. Sarah's heart dropped. "Let's go now," Mia whispered urgently, realizing the same danger had drawn near. It was a chilling reminder that in this line of work, every move came at a price, one that would soon put their new Resolute to the ultimate test. Would they escape this looming threat? Or was this just the beginning of their deepest challenges yet? Adrenaline coursed through Sarah's veins as she hastily tucked the documents into her bag, the ominous figure's presence amplifying her urgency. She grabbed Mia's wrist, feeling the faint tremor in her partner's pulse. They navigated quickly toward the cafe's rear exit, adrenaline sharpening their senses as fear intensified the air around them. Emerging into the alleyway behind the cafe, the shadows felt alive, pulsating with undisclosed dangers. Sarah sharply inhaled, willing her mind to focus. Distraction had cost them everything. They needed a strategy, a foundation upon which to build their confrontation against the looming threat. But the urgency of the moment had twisted her thoughts into knots of anxiety. "Where do we go?" Mia's voice trembled, laced with both urgency and fear. "Just keep moving. We can think better out here," Sarah replied, her mind whirling. She had watched enough crime dramas to know this was a pivotal moment, not just in terms of their immediate safety, but in how they would choose to confront the dangers ahead. They slipped against the wall and moved to the corner of the alley, peering cautiously into the bustling street. Amid the chaos of the city, ordinary faces scurried to their next destination, completely unaware of the storm rumbling behind the polished facade of corporate life. Sarah's thoughts raced. Each emotion she felt was a tangible weight pulling her in different directions, fear urging her to hide, and a fierce determination driving her to fight back. She had always been the calm observer, documenting stories rather than becoming part of them. Now she found herself in the epicenter, and the real stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. "Are we really doing this?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper, eyes glistening in fear and uncertainty. "This doesn't feel right." "Every significant truth is faced with danger," Sarah replied, her voice firmer than she felt. That duality, fear of the unknown and thrill of the chase, ignited something deep within her. She had spent her career seeking stories, but now she was living one. What if we fail? Mia's doubt seeped through, a trembling crux of vulnerability that Sarah could no longer afford to entertain. "We won't fail," Sarah retorted, instinctively tightening her grip. "Every second we hesitate is a second we let them win. If we're going to do this, it has to be now. We find out who's involved and push it to the press. We expose it all, starting at the top." Mia stared at her, the tension crackling between them. "And what if they come for us?" A flicker of doubt crossed Sarah's mind. The weight of their unfolding narrative hung heavy. Retreat meant safety, but at what cost? She was not only fighting for her career, but for integrity, the kind of journalism she had longed to uphold, the kind that might finally mean something deeper. "Then we'll fight back," Sarah said, the confidence in her tone surprising even herself.
"If we shed light on this, others will join us. There's power in truth, Mia, and they won't expect us to be the ones to bring it." They stepped out of the alley onto a busy street. The world resumed its rhythm as they moved, hearts drumming in sync with their hurried steps. The intersection ahead opened into a sprawling plaza, teeming with life, people sporting casual indifference to the looming storm brewing just beneath the surface of their fine lives. Sarah spotted a small tech shop across the way, maybe a safe haven for calculations and strategizing. "Let's go in there," she said, nudging Mia forward. Each potential step felt monumental. Each decision could lead them deeper into the murky waters of corruption. With every inch closer to the tech shop, her resolve solidified. They would not crawl into the corners of fear. They would stand their ground. Sarah glanced around, scanning the surrounding crowds for any signs of the figure from the cafe. "Remember," she murmured to Mia, "every moment we keep moving, we're one step closer to the truth." As they slipped into the shop, a surge of determination replaced the lingering fear. This narrative was more than an act of bravery. It was an opportunity to reveal her true potential. She was ready to confront the hidden darkness, not only for herself, but for countless others ensnared in the ruins. But just as they began to strategize their next moves, Sarah's phone buzzed insistently, an ominous notification lighting up the screen. As she glanced down, her heart sank. A message from an unknown number flashed ominously. "You have what doesn't belong to you. Return it, and you both will be safe." A chill crept down her spine, awakening a deeper dread. Would they truly have the ability to outmaneuver those who played with shadows? "Mia, we have to act fast," she blurted, pulse quickening with dawning realization that their fight had only just begun. The stakes had leveled up, and the game was no longer just about exposure, but survival. Sarah's heart thudded with the uncertain thrill of impending confrontation. The moment of confrontation approached, its shadows closing in with malevolent intent. Would they have the courage to act against forces that sought to silence them, or would they be caught in a web far more complex than they ever envisioned? The fluorescent lights inside the tech shop flickered, casting a sterile glow that contrasted sharply with the tension enveloping Sarah and Mia. Customers clustered around shelves filled with gadgets, their casual conversations forming a backdrop that felt maddeningly normal against their own swirling chaos. They were figments of a reality untouched by the darkness they now faced, mere distractions in a world that just hours ago had felt so secure to Sarah. "Okay, we need to think," Sarah whispered urgently, ushering Mia to a secluded table at the back of the store. "What do we know?" Mia fumbled with her phone, her fingers trembling.
"Just that we're in over our heads, I guess," she replied, her voice shaky. "This doesn't feel like a simple story anymore." The flicker of fear in Mia's eyes ignited a protective instinct within Sarah. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to adopt the role of the leader she needed to be. "No, it's about more than that. There's a whole system at play. The messages, the figure, they're trying to intimidate us, hoping we'll back down." Mia nodded slowly, tears threatening to spill. "But what if they're right? What if we're not ready for this?" "I've reported before," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "I've faced angry editors, deadlines, appeals for censorship. Sure, those felt intense, but this is different. This isn't just about me anymore. If we have the chance to reveal the truth, we owe it to ourselves, to everyone affected, to at least try." As Mia glanced around, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on them, watching their every moment, assessing the threat level they posed. The walls seemed to echo her apprehensions, amplifying the stakes she increasingly recognized. "Let's think tactically." She took control, reframing their situation like a serious reporter. "We need to identify who's behind this operation. The message referenced something we possess. Do we know what that could be?" Mia's brows knitted together in concentration. "The documents? But we're not sure they're anything substantial." "Yet," Sarah emphasized, desperation edging her tone. "We still need to figure out what we have. First, we pull the files from my bag and do a quick review. We strategize based on what's on them and how it all ties into the broader narrative we can expose." Mia nodded with resolve. Her strength returned as they hunkered down. They had become the agents of their own destiny. As Sarah produced the documents, her hands shook not with fear, but with the electricity of impending confrontation, the thrill of uncovering a monumental truth. The papers were filled with spreadsheets, email threads, and names of individuals associated with questionable activities. As Sarah scanned the documents, something caught her eye. A series of transactions leading to a shell corporation with ties to empty real estate that had seen suspicious activity. The implications began to unravel before her. It wasn't just about corruption, it was potentially connected to something much larger. "Look at this," she urged Mia, pointing out the connection. "This could link back to people in power we never suspected, people who might retaliate. This isn't just the local crime we thought." Mia leaned in, absorbing the information with a sense of urgency mirrored by Sarah's resolve. "So, what now?" "We conduct our own investigation," Sarah decisively. "We gather evidence, document verifications. Then we determine the best safe way to approach the story. This has to be bulletproof before it goes public." Mia's fear morphed into a tacit determination.
"How do we remain safe while doing this?" "By outsmarting them," Sarah replied, startled by the conviction in her voice. "We won't cower or scatter. We'll look for allies in this intrigue, dig deeper, adopt a tactical approach, like we are conducting an investigation into a cover-up instead of a rat race to expose the truth blindly." As they meticulously organized their findings, buzzing phones and murmuring voices faded into the background, the gravity of their task tightening its grip around them. The shadows that loomed were merely reflections of their internal struggles and external fears. They could grasp this moment for growth, discovering capabilities they never knew existed beneath fear. But just as they resolved to dig deeper, the bell of the shop's entrance chimed, drawing their immediate attention. A man entered, dressed in a suit that felt too formal for the ambiance. But what truly sent a ripple of panic through Sarah was the man's unyielding gaze searching the room, a look that spoke volumes before his mouth opened at all. "Mia, stay hidden," Sarah whispered, her heart racing. The game of survival was ramping up, and their next move was about to take them down a path neither had anticipated. Would they have the willpower to confront this new adversary stepping into their unnerving reality? With everything on the line, the moment of reckoning was here. As the man's gaze finally settled on Sarah, she felt like a deer caught in headlights. This was not just any figure. He was too deliberate, too calculated. She hadn't seen him before, but his presence radiated a sense of authority that brought all her instincts to bear. "Mia," she mouthed, while her gaze remained locked on the stranger. The fluttering of her heart quieted as she recalled the resolve they had spent hours building. This was it, her moment to stand strong. "Excuse me," the man said, his voice smooth yet commanding, drawing attention from nearby customers. "I'm looking for someone." He began to weave his way toward their table with noticeable purpose. Sarah squeezed Mia's hand for courage. "Stay calm," she whispered. With every step the man took, Sarah examined the layers of his suit, the sharp lines of his features. He was not dangerous in appearance, but she could sense the threat lurking behind his demeanor. "Mia," he said, glancing at her. "May I have a word?" The way he enunciated her name chilled Sarah's bones. They were in the eye of a storm, and she suddenly felt their plan teetering precariously. She searched Mia's face, attempting to convey a mix of strength and caution as she tucked the documents back into her bag without the man noticing. "No, thank you," Mia replied, the tremor of uncertainty barely masked. The man's expression turned slightly amused, as if witnessing a futile act of defiance. "I can assure you that I'm not here to create trouble. In fact, I'm here to offer you both an opportunity." Sarah wanted to scoff, but she couldn't shake the feeling that he knew more than he let on. An opportunity? Or a threat masquerading as one? "We have no interest in whatever you're selling," Sarah asserted, her voice firmer than she felt. The surge of confidence was buoyed by a mutual understanding with Mia. They were equipped to navigate this unexpected test. "I think you might want to reconsider," the man said smoothly, a flash of something dangerous in his eyes. "You're meddling in matters well above your pay grade. Let me help protect you." "Protect us from whom?" Mia asked, her voice steadier now. The fear was still there, but so was an inkling of courage. From powerful people answering to no one but themselves. People who don't take kindly to threats, especially unsubstantiated ones. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice into an eerie whisper. "You should think twice before pushing forward with this agenda of yours. It could end poorly for both of you." The darkness in his words resonated, tightening around Sarah and Mia like a noose, yet Sarah felt an awakening within her. a realization that this was exactly the voice of intimidation they had prepared to confront. "If you think we'll cower into complacency, you've underestimated us," she replied defiantly, the weight of her conviction exuding more confidence than she'd ever known. For a moment, the man's gaze faltered, surprised by Sarah's strength. Then he straightened, regained his formality, and offered a chilling smile. "That's exactly how I want you to proceed. But be warned, stepping into that realm of truth will cost you." In that moment, Sarah felt an unusual alignment of clarity. They were at a turning point, not just in their investigation, but in their lives. This man represented a choice, a challenge emerging from the underbelly of intimidation. They could retreat, allowing fear to dampen the truth, or they could plunge into the darkness, armed with the light of their conviction. "You want to play games? Fine. We can play those too," Sarah said, her voice quaking gently but full of iron. The man raised an eyebrow, impressed, even if it was merely a maneuver to bolster her emerging confidence. "Don't say I didn't warn you," he replied, casually glancing back at the entrance as if peering for outside threats. Then he retreated, leaving an unsettling tension trailing behind him like an echo. "Sarah?" Mia whispered urgently, her mind buzzing. "What do we do now?" "We stick to the plan," Sarah replied, steeling her voice against the tremor of fear threatening to resurface. "We keep gathering evidence, connecting the dots, and we find our allies. We won't be intimidated. We're not alone in this fight." With a renewed sense of purpose, they leaned over the documents, absorbing every detail with heightened clarity. As Sarah delved deeper, her mind filled with strategies for potential allies. Individuals she once thought overlooked were now essential in rising against the shadowy structures they were brave enough to confront. Hours morphed into a frenzy of investigation, fueled by shared determination and exhilaration. Each telephone call, each email sent, reverberated with their courage, a growing coalition against a corporate monster. Days later, armed with corroborated stories and credible sources, they stood at the entrance of the editorial boardroom, ready to unveil the narrative they crafted. "Ready?" Mia asked, a cautious optimism threading her voice. "Ready," Sarah affirmed, pushing the doors open. The gravity of their journey settled around her like armor, and she embraced that shield with every ounce of resilience she had discovered. The board members, categorically unprepared for the ferocity of their confrontation, wore masks of disbelief as Sarah delivered their evidence, articulate and unflinching. As the momentum shifted under her command, she witnessed the fray, the confrontation they yearned for, a blending of truth and power. Each reluctant nod from the board represented an acknowledgement of her tenacity, her fortitude. By the end of the meeting, Sarah emerged not just as a whistleblower, but as an indomitable force, a professional transformed. Clarity replaced doubt. The walls they stood before no longer felt insurmountable. "Did you see their faces?" Mia whispered, barely able to contain her excitement. "You were incredible." "We did this together," Sarah replied, enveloped in a swell of accomplishment. The shadows had receded, leaving them basking in a triumph far greater than self. She had faced her fears, exposed the truth, and in doing so, she reignited the fierce warrior within. And as they left the boardroom, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. With every step forward, she marched toward not only her professional legitimacy, but a life away from fears that once paralyzed her. This wasn't merely a battle won, it was a transformation into the advocate she had always aspired to be. Now was the time to celebrate their victory, but also to prepare for the challenges ahead. Yet this time, they wouldn't be standing alone. Are you ready to step into your own transformation? If you want more transformative stories like Sarah's, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on exclusive emotional journeys. Leave a like now to support the algorithm and keep these empowering narratives alive. Comment below with your thoughts and predictions on how Sarah's journey continues. Let's unravel it together. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need a dose of inspiration right now. This is the moment to show your support and spread the message of personal triumph. Don't wait even one more second.